Hello everyone, this is part 1 of What If Naruto Didn't Come Back After 2 Years. This story is made by IronicEnding, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Hokage. The lure was given to not only the strongest ninja in Konoha, but also the one who cared for the hidden village and its people more than any other. It was the ultimate form of recognition. Even among the other Kages, the Hokages specifically were considered to be extremely powerful. Time and time again has the village of the Leaf fallen prey to the attacks of not only men but mystical demons as well. And each and every time it had managed to bounce back more powerful than before. This was undoubtedly the result and test of true leadership. None were more noted than the fourth. He was the legendary Yellow Flash of Konoha. Yondaime was someone whose power, speed, and dedication were unmatched by even his predecessors. Only he could have sealed the most powerful of the tailed demons. And only he could have had too much faith in the people he protected. The boy was supposed to be the hero of Konoha. Instead he became all that the hidden village wished to forget. He was the cause of their everlasting sorrow. He was the reason the children would be forced to live in fear of another attack. He was the reason the village of Sound and Sand chose to lay siege to their home. It had to be because of him. It couldn't possibly be the village's fault or the result of deranged madmen. That was just too illogical, wasn't it? In the end, all that meant was that poor Naruto was torn between his dream and his dream. There was almost nothing more that he wanted than to become acknowledged by his home by becoming Hokage. But in order to do what was best for Konoha, he must never return to Konoha. He couldn't very well remain in that town and pose a danger to his precious ones and still somehow manage to claim that he above all else wished to protect them. That was why he couldn't come back after 3 years. 20 years ago, the most brutal assault on the hidden village of Konoha had taken place and its beloved fourth Hokage had died. 20 years ago, Yondaime's legacy had been born. 7 years ago, the number one ninja in surprising people had left his home with his new sensei with no real intention to ever return. Sure, he told everyone it would only take 3 years. There was always the off chance he could return one day. It was not as if he signed his life away and felt he was damned to die in the process of his work. If it was within Uzumaki Naruto's power, he would return home victorious. Akatsuki only needed to be delayed. If they missed the deadline within 3 years, Naruto and the other demon carriers would have bought themselves some more time. It was Sasuke that proved to be the problem. At the end of 3 years his body would no longer be his own and Naruto was still no closer to locating his former teammate. However, some problems had the habit of correcting themselves. No, the raven-haired Avenger did not return to those he betrayed. But he had turned traitor once more. It seemed to be in his B. He had seen through Orochimaru's attempt to take his body and trick the Sannin. Orochimaru was forced to choose another temporary vessel and delayed his transfer into the Uchiha for just a little bit longer. Even Sasuke had been able to buy himself some time. All this meant to Naruto was that he would have to stay away from Konoha that much longer. So 3 years passed and no one heard a word from Naruto. Then 4 years passed, and 5 and so forth. Soon the loudest ninja the hidden village produced was nothing more than an echo that was fading away from memory like a terribly nightmare that only went away with time. Now his name was rarely spoken. But he was not forgotten. Not if the Rookie 9 had anything to say about it. Not if the fifth Hokage had her way. Most had written off the boy as MIA or D, but his memory could not be allowed to just wither away. He had impacted far too many people to become nothing more than a person who never was. There wouldn't be a memorial for him if it was true that he had died. The Council of Elders claimed his name couldn't be added to the list of fallen ninjas until some proof of his death could be produced. It was a lame excuse to even themselves. It seemed the only way Naruto could be recognized was to be labeled a missing ninja. A traitor to Konoha. It was a lure he did nothing to deserve. But suddenly hope would spring up again some 5 years after Naruto's departure. Rumors spread like wildfire as mysterious tales spread throughout the land. The Yellow Flash of Konoha lived. And he seemed to be saving lives throughout the country of fire. Unfortunately, no one could get a good enough look at the man's face to confirm the rumors, but it must be true. Who else could leave a blur of blonde hair while traveling at such insane speeds? Who else could shock people with his striking blue eyes when someone caught just the briefest hazy glance? Who else could summon frogs to do their bidding? And who else but the Yellow Flash could control and wield the awesome power of the Rasengan? The second coming of the Yellow Flash gave spirit to a country of faltering hope. Mere men could only accomplish so much, but those who became more than men and transcended to the level of ideals were the ones who changed lives. Soon villagers felt safe in their homes and no longer feared abduction while they slept. They had someone to look out for them. Someone to protect them from invaders. Someone who didn't need nor care for their acknowledgement. 7 years later that someone was returning home. A figure with unruly white hair and a strange marking of oil upon his forehead protector was quickly approaching the gates of Konoha while his strength was faltering. Upon both his shoulders remained the body of a ninja who could fight no longer. He had been a fool to let his pupil engage in that last conflict alone. Even Jiraiya was prone to make the occasional mistake. It was kind of funny. The hidden village of Konoha was so easy to find. All one had to do was look for the mountain with the faces of the 5 Hokages carved upon it. It appeared that they finally saw fit to add Tsunade to it. Perhaps if Naruto were to awaken, he could take the time to defile that one as well. No, that wouldn't happen. He long since grew out of such childish pranks. It was amazing how fast maturity could catch up with someone. All they needed to do was face certain death 5 or 6 times. Jiraiya quickly spotted the chakra of inbound Anbu members on patrol. Good, they would have to carry them the rest of the way for he could not. The frog hermit collapsed under the weight of his apprentice as his weakened body also suffered from a great many from their last battle. Naruto had protested the entire way against going back to Konoha until the pain caused him to pass out. He couldn't return, not yet. Several masked ninja surrounded the duo while the remaining hid themselves in case this was a possible ambush. Their idinis were barely distinguishable under the garbled mess of clothing, but some faces could never be forgotten. At least by the team leader. Naruto. He lives. He returns. It would be best not to alert the other members on my squad just yet. Their response would be most unpleasant. It's Jiraiya. Quickly, take them both to the medical center. I'll report to the Hokage. The Junins quickly complied with the orders while the team leader left to reach the 5th. If there was a conflict great enough to gravely eye one of the legendary Sannin, Konoha needed to know. Hospitals everywhere were always the same. The staff ran around wearing those not-so-sanitary lab coats and white masks to protect them from pathogens. The entire building held that sterile smell that was neither foul nor pleasant. And of course, there were always those annoying bright lights. Why in the world did doctors find it necessary to blind their patients after they had already been eye? A dazed Naruto was slowly beginning to regain consciousness as a blur of faces covered in medical masks hovered above him. Tsunade-sama. He is awakening. I was worried this would happen. That damn fox had a habit of causing trouble. But why did it choose to heal the boy now that he was in a hospital? Surely he could have used such a gift immediately following the battle. But the 5th had overreacted. For a normal person, waking up in the middle of a surgery would have been a traumatic experience that could only further complicate matters. However, Naruto wasn't the #1 ninja at surprising people for nothing. His W started to heal themselves and his body began to reseal itself. It was an utterly amazing sight to behold. The boy had never been able to mend himself so quickly before. Wait, that was wrong. He wasn't a boy anymore. Hey old hag. Long time no see. Never mind. Forget all that talk about maturity earlier. Not everyone grows up. She normally would have stuttered his name slowly. Her fist should have clenched and become raised with anger. Tsunade should have given the little brat a pounding of a lifetime just so he may have the tiniest bit of respect beaten into him. You're Kami, the boys within her embrace. With a look of fear, Tsunade began to quickly check his vitals and feared she may have done more damage than good with her display of affection. No, she couldn't have hurt him, not so soon after he came back. He wouldn't turn out just like her, so. Gotcha. One eye blue orb opened while a cheeky grin was plastered upon his face. Mature or not, Naruto will always be Naruto. Tsunade tightly clenched her teeth together as she spoke to the boy. You better rest up, Naruto, because when you get better I am going to beat you senseless. Then I am going to heal you so I can do it again. This time Naruto closed his eyes sleepily upon hearing Chuan's threats. Okay, Hokage-sama. The young blonde was rolled out of the surgery room on the gurney and brought back to his room while a flustered Sannin stood frozen. Was he just respectful? Two giant orbs suddenly became conscious of the world around him once more. His eyes blinked rapidly as he became accustomed to the light that was shining in. Everything was still the same, the unnecessarily bright hospital lights, all the additional sickening white and, wait, the room. It smelled different. His nose was enraptured by the smell of cherry blossoms as her fragrance wafted up to Naruto's nose. Sometimes having keen senses could be a blessing. His head rapidly jerked to the side and revealed the source of the aroma. Haruno Sakura sat in a chair next to him flipping through medical charts as she wrote down notes from her rounds. Her hair was worn up in a ponytail while two stray bangs matched the slight curve in her face. Upon hearing the ruffling on the bed, her forest green eyes slowly shifted from the pads she held to the male form laying upon the bed. Her soft pink lips pursed apart as she brought one hand up to cover her gasp. Naruto, you're really alive. You're really awake. The charts she held before clambered against the ground as Sakura leaped forward and wrapped her slender arms around the bruised warrior. It seemed Kyuubi healed him enough to only prevent him from dying, not from sparing him pain. S.A. Sakura-chan. Is it really you, Sakura-chan? She was gorgeous. Sakura was always one of the prettiest ninjas he had ever come across, but back then she was still just a girl. Right now the person hugging him tightly was all woman. The smack to the top of his head answered that question. Of course it's me, Barker. She quickly followed up with a tender, of course it's me, she spoke in a near whisper. That dual action described the little vixen perfectly. She was the ultimate combination of extreme harshness and soft gentleness all rolled up into one person. Sakura was never afraid to display her quick and unbridled anger to both friend and foe. Unfortunately, the training she received under Tsunade gave her the strength she needed to back up her carefully warded threats. Only her friends and family saw the daughter's loving side. It was the part of her that could show affection, concern and passion for that which she held important. Her arms were still tightly wrapped around Naruto as she leaned her head against him. Of their own will, Naruto's arms could do little more than follow suit and wrap their own hands around her waist. Sakura-chan. You can let go of me now. Could that have been a typo of sorts? Was it actually Naruto who asked for Sakura to get off of him? Impossible. Absurd. In truth, his actions betrayed his words on how he really felt on the matter. But regardless of how he felt about the pink-haired girl, his eye was still severe and pained him as her increased pressure was forced upon him. Naruto felt a few tears dampen the paper-like clothing he was forced to wear throughout the duration of his stay in the hospital. You big, stupid, selfish jerk. 3 years. You were supposed to come back after 3 years. I thought you'd. Everyone did. People started to forget you were ever here because you left us all alone. Naruto's sky-blue eyes began to cloud over while his glance started to slowly shift down while Sakura continued to speak. Then Tsunade-sama told me you never planned on returning. That your promise of a lifetime would end up costing you a lifetime. But I knew, Naruto. I knew you would come back. How else could you end up Hokage? You had to come back to accomplish your dream. Naruto's discomfort suddenly felt like such a trivial thing compared to what he had put his friend through. Sakura should have been glad to have been rid of such a pest. She should have been comforted that Naruto would only come back when he no longer posed a danger to the town and once Sasuke could be made to return. Instead, he had cheated her from a pillar of strength. He was supposed to be her unwavering rock that provided stability when the world around her fell apart. Instead, he shattered and abandoned her as well, giving her the worst kind of hope possible. The false kind. His face was crestfallen and his voice downcast. I'm sorry, Sakura-chan. Thanks for visiting me. I'll try not to upset you if we run into each other again. This was why he originally left. He wanted to spare his precious ones this kind of pain. It wasn't fair to them. It wasn't fair to him. Sakura released her grasp upon him and reclaimed her seat next to his bed after gathering up the many charts that clattered against the floor. You wish you could get rid of me that easily, Naruto. I've taken the next few weeks off from work here at the hospital so I can take care of you. You build up a lot of vacation time over the past 7 years if you never use any. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't do anything stupid now that you're back. Silently she said to herself, and someone needs to make sure you stay. So you're my doctor then? Oh, this could be trouble. Sakura now had access to all kinds of poisons and painful remedies. He certainly wasn't comforted by the fact she must be very skilled with a scalpel. He would hate to wake up one morning and discover he was missing something very important. Not yet, I will be though soon. I just have to finish up these charts on my other patients. Tsunade-sama wanted me to do that before taking a look at yours. She had received a warning that his history would be cause for great concern. It wasn't the ideal way of letting Sakura find out about his past, but there was no chance Naruto would reveal it to her. So you haven't looked at my chart yet? He stopped smiling. Naruto never stopped smiling, even if that meant he had to fake it. No, not yet. Patients rarely ask about their charts or get so worked up over their medical history. What could be in there? Naruto sighed and leaned back. Good. That meant he had a little bit more time to have Sakura's respect. She would no doubt want to switch off this particular assignment once she found out what happened. Sakura quickly shot her glance back up with a curious expression upon her face. What could have been so terrible about his past? Now was not the time to pry. She would find out soon enough anyways. Cheer up, Naruto. I'll be here for the rest of the day, and starting tomorrow, I will be your official doctor. I'm pretty good at it too. I bet I'll be better than the Hokage herself someday. I know you will be, Sakura. It wasn't Naruto speaking. It was far too motherly a voice. The fifth Hokage walked into the room and headed towards Naruto. She ruffled his wild blonde hair and leaned in too, but stopped for just a moment. There was already some pink lipstick upon it. Looks like someone had beaten her to the punch. Oh well, being second here was no problem. Sakura blushed deeply, having heard some rare words of praise from her sensei. Maybe now that Naruto is back, everyone will act a bit happier. He tended to have that effect on people. Now get some rest, Naruto. I'd like to talk to you about your travels, but we can do that once you're discharged. I'm sure you would want to get reacquainted with everyone else first. I'll leave for now and give you guys some more alone time. Tsunade did something she had little reason to do anymore. She smiled. She turned to leave around but found her hand weighed far more than it should have. The blonde woman turned around and found a guilt-stricken boy with watery eyes looking back at her. No matter how old he got, Naruto could never abandon his childlike appearance. No, please, stay, Tsunade-sama. The fifth quickly turned around all the way and hugged Naruto as tightly as her medical training told her was safe, as her own tears escaped the prison of her eyes. She muffled her sobs into him as she spoke while one hand gently stroked the far side of his face. Naruto, don't you ever worry me like that again. First you leave and never let anyone know how you were doing, and then you came back so gravely. I never want anything to happen to my little boy. The mighty Hokage sniffled a few times before slowly releasing her clasps upon the one she saw as a second son. Naruto looked back feeling more than a little bit shaken. Her little boy. She accepted him, acknowledged him, gave him the hope of having a family, some kind of root even though it wasn't by bloodline. Could I call you Mom? It was a heavy request that Tsunade had every right to deny. She nodded slowly with a smile upon her face. Just never when it's matters relating to official business or when I need to talk to you ninja to ninja. Understand. For once Naruto was unusually quiet, though it didn't prevent him from nodding in understanding. She loved him like a son, but they could never confuse business with family. Not in their line of work. You know this means you can't call me an old hag anymore. Being an adoptive mother does have its advantages. Alarmed Naruto almost sprang up from his bed. What? Why not? Somehow Naruto felt he was getting the raw side of this deal. Because then I may just have to ground you and make you clean your room. The two suddenly started laughing and was quickly joined in by Sakura. The entire time she could only watch speechlessly as she didn't know the two knew each other so well. Alright, Mom, it is. Yes, being a mother again certainly did have its advantages. Good. Now let's go about finding you a good wife. It was supposed to have been just a little joke, right? He couldn't possibly be thought well enough to find someone willing to marry him. It's not like someone was waiting 7 dreadfully long years hoping against hope that the boy may someday return. So then why was Sakura blushing? She wouldn't stand anywhere near him. At least not while he was awake. Whenever the young man was conscious, the closest she would get was the far side of the room where only the occasional glance in his direction was given. She was given his chart. Sakura knew his secret. If it was one of Naruto's old pranks, it was a poorly played. Something of this nature just wasn't funny. When she had learned of Naruto's return to Konoha, she felt elated, overjoyed, and more than anything else, relief. He made it back to her. He cared enough. He just plain cared. And then news of his condition spread as massive amounts of mindless drones buzzed about the city. With each additional person to hear that piece of gossip, his condition was worsened exponentially. Once it had finally reached Sakura's ears, there was supposed to have been nothing left of the boy. Aghast with horror, she ran towards the hospital and ignored the fierce pain that burned within her legs after completing the training regimen her sensei had assigned. The blur of pink hair didn't need to offer identification to any of the staff, being the Hokage's personal student. She rushed up the stairs after finding the elevators worked too slow for her liking and approached the room she knew he was held within. No matter how much time would pass, she could never forget the feel of his chakra. Just as she was about to barrel through, she realized that 2 hands restrained her from entering. Sakura's body was snapped around harshly as she found herself face to face with 2 Anbu members who now refused her entry. No words were offered to the worrying pink woman, only the slight shaking of their heads told her that she was not yet allowed to see him. Perhaps the time would come, but now was not it. There was a good chance that she could fend off or at least distract the Anbu members long enough to at least brush inside the room and get a glimpse of him, but such acts of foolishness would only disgrace her family and teacher while offering no real clues to Naruto's condition. With a quiet determination, she marched to the opposite side of the hall and commandeered a free seat. The fire that grew in her eyes made it look as if the great tree of Konoha itself was being turned to ash as an orangey-red fire mixed with the natural green beauty they held. The Anbu were lucky that their faces were concealed behind masks. It would have been embarrassing to have to show fear to a young pink-haired woman who was barely 20. Sakura looked left and right and wondered where all the other people who were concerned for Naruto were. Perhaps they were forced to stand by in the waiting room. No one should have a problem with her residing here since she did work there. She sensed a familiar chakra approaching her, yet it was one that she could not easily pinpoint in her mind. It was extremely well controlled, almost as if that person's signature was not there at all. Perhaps that's why Sakura was surprised to find that particular ninja standing next to her without warning. Will he be all right? A man of few words, Hyuga Neji stood solemnly next to the worried girl. She could not have been sitting there but for a few moments, yet her eyes already looked and felt terribly grief-stricken. I don't know. Those 2 won't let me in. Say, could you? Neji was the first of the gang to make it into Anbu. Chances were he had formed enough influence within that secretive brotherhood to maybe gain either of them limited access. No, he didn't explain why he shot down her offer so readily. It wasn't that he didn't want to help the girl, but rather he couldn't. Was it his need to preserve his pride and honor that prevented him from asking this favor and requesting the help of others? Hardly. To have fallen victim to such a character flaw would mean to tarnish everything that a young man had taught him so many years ago. Neji had tried to gain access but was denied. The orders had come straight down from the Hokage herself. I didn't think so. But I have to know. Her voice steadily increased in volume as she spoke. Her inner Sakura was blooming as well throughout the years. Everyone kept saying he was in such bad condition. All I heard was how he was missing an arm or an eye was hanging out of his socket or how he was barely alive. The young Hyuga stood quietly while the pink one went about her rant. It was useless to stop her. He didn't need to read her eyes in order to understand she had a lot of emotion that she needed to get off her chest. But Naruto can't be like that. He just can't be. He smiles all the time. Why would someone want to hurt someone like that? Sakura sniffled slightly while she paused in her speech. The irony that she hurt him more than anyone else never dawned upon her. If Naruto was not okay, then we couldn't see him smile anymore. Neji shifted uncomfortably for a few seconds and cursed his luck for arriving here so soon. It was awkward to listen to someone he barely knew reveal the full fury of their emotions. While he never got to see a display of her unbridled anger, he had heard stories and made the mental note to remain on her good side some years back. If you truly knew Naruto, then you would understand that no matter what condition he may be in, he would smile. No matter how he felt on the inside, a smile was always on his face, even a fake one to keep the spirit of his friends up. I suppose someone like you could have noticed. Or perhaps you were not as close to the boy as you would like to think. Time has a way of blurring memories. The problem with most mental notes is you never find the time to write any of them down. It seems his memory not to upset Sakura was blurred as well. Sakura clenched her fists in anger after being berated by that bastard. He spoke in such a calm and noble manner that it was almost as if he was looking down upon her inadequacies. She would have no more of that. She had already invested enough time and training to prove to anyone that she was not just extra baggage. What do you know? You think just because you lost to him in a battle over 7 years ago that you know him better than any of us. I was the one who, she was interrupted once more. It was odd to see the hint of anger within the Hyuga's eyes, but it was necessary nonetheless. I believe we should be focusing on Naruto and not how we affected his life. Or how he affected ours, he added mentally. It seems even when the boy was barely clinging to life, those around him still had trouble acknowledging his importance. Everyone wanted to glorify themselves. Then help me get in. He could be dying in there. He deserves to at least be surrounded by the people that care about him. I'll go and get them from the waiting room. Sakura stood up to leave but found herself once again restrained by a hand against her shoulder. Her stirred anger overcame her as she launched a punch in the Hyuga's direction. Only Neji's keen awareness of his surroundings saved him from having his own room next to Naruto's. There are no others. I have already checked. The Byakugan was useful in scanning everyone in the hospital. That's impossible. He must have some family that wanted to see if he was okay even though he didn't have parents. Or his friends, why aren't they here? Could anything else be more important than making sure Naruto was okay? If it was instinctively on the top of her list of priorities, surely it would only be natural that everyone else felt the same way. As I thought, you know nothing of his past. Truthfully, Neji knew little about Naruto before he became Anbu. It was only after he was inducted in was allowed access to certain privileged information. It certainly didn't hurt matters that he was a member of the Hyuga clan. Instead of reacting with her typical outburst, Sakura remained quiet save the soft whimpers that escaped her. Her knuckles turned white as the circulation was off while her head tipped forward slightly. She would have been forced to see the annoyingly repeat pattern of the tile floor beneath, but her eyes were tightly shut to prevent the tears from escaping. They did so anyways. She knew the Junin was right. She claimed to care about him, but there was little about the boy that she actually knew. Come to think of it, she hadn't heard of any Uzumakis in the village. Didn't he have anyone here? Her voice was a soft whisper, barely audible to someone of even Neji's caliber. I'll go get Tsunade-sama. Hokage-sama is in the operating room healing Jiraiya-sama. She will be done in a few moments, but I suggest you wait until then. There would be little you could do to speed her up. The more he spoke, the more Sakura detested his all-knowing voice. Stupid Hyugas and all their arrogance. I just want to know if he's okay. Please let him be okay. Please. She couldn't go back to being all alone again. Not after the hope of having someone was so recently rekindled. He will be just fine. Just because he couldn't gain access to the room didn't mean he couldn't see inside there. He didn't want to use his technique for that purpose, but it seemed like there was no other way to shut this one up. Sakura arched an eyebrow as she glanced up at him in confusion. Was he toying with her emotions now? How can you be so sure? Because I was the leader of the patrol that found him. I can assure you that he had all his limbs, but he was gravely ill. However, his chakra flow is strong and his body seems to be healing quickly. Maybe now she would be a bit more calm and reserved. Luck did not seem to be on the Hyuga's side as he found the pink-haired girl latched onto him in a hug. Her eyes told him it was purely out of appreciation. Thank God. His wife would have killed him otherwise. Actually, she may still do that if she ever finds out. You know this would break Naruto's heart. The fifth Hokage quickly made her way towards them while signaling for the Anbu there to disperse. To everyone except Neji's surprise, a few more Anbu members left the room while another stopped his transformation, which disguised him as a free chair. He actually called for you in the operating room, you know. Then why didn't you give orders to let me see him? I have my reasons. No matter. Starting from tomorrow you shall be the brat's, I mean Naruto's doctor anyways. I suggest you use some of your vacation days to give him some personal attention. Why don't you go and finish up the charts for your other patients before I give you Naruto's? I have a feeling you're not ready yet for what you may see in there. Sakura smiled in that signature way only Naruto could as she nodded and ran off to the staff lounge in order to change into her work clothes. The sooner she finished those charts, the sooner she could find out what the hell everyone else seemed to know. And that's how Sakura came to be in Naruto's room a few hours later, filling out a series of charts and awaiting her comrade to return to the conscious world the day before. That chart was how Sakura now became too scared to get any closer to Naruto than she was standing now. Even after a week she was timid in her approach of him. It should be okay to do so now, however. It looked like he was sleeping. There was no way he could be so calm and relaxed if he were awake. Sakura tiptoed into his room and approached the end of his bed where she looked at the updated version of his chart. Sighing, she made her way to the far wall where she glanced at the rather packed file containing his medical history and something of more importance. She felt as if a lump were caught in her throat the more she thought about it. There was no time for that. She was his doctor after all and his care was her responsibility. Tomorrow he would be discharged and she would have to take him back to his apartment, so she better make sure everything goes well today. The young doctor stood by the front of his bed while she placed a hand upon his forehead. She couldn't help but gaze longingly at the man's face. He looked so peaceful right now. It kind of made her doubt that anything written in that chart could be true. Surely no one with his pain could ever look so innocent and carefree in his sleep. Her senses couldn't even catch it, but Naruto's hand grabbed her wrist quickly. Sakura struggled slightly to release his grip upon her, but she knew that using her monstrous strength would only eye her patient. You stopped visiting me when I'm awake, so I figured I had to pretend I was sleeping in order to get your attention. Slowly his eyes opened and revealed his shimmering orbs. His tears were being held back by his collective will, the same one that forced him to plaster that classic dopey smile upon his face. Naruto. I mean I have been so busy that the only time I could come around was when I was. She felt stupid lying to him, especially when both knew it to be so. The blonde's smile grew wider as he absorbed the words she spoke. Always the Naruto, never the Kun. Oh well, at least Sakura-chan is trying to spare my feelings. That's so nice of her. She didn't even transfer me to another doctor when she read my chart. God, she is so wonderful. And as pretty as ever. I'm sorry, Naruto. It's just that I couldn't face you after I found that out. I understand, Sakura-chan. The more he smiled, the longer it hurt. He could only comfort himself by thinking that a frown would have been more unpleasant for everyone. You understand. You understand. Sakura marched over to where his history was kept and pulled out the most recent X-ray. Angrily she s it against the light board and glared crossly back at his direction. How can you possibly understand this, Naruto? I suppose most of you are expecting some disfigured mass of the QB to be residing within the picture of the X-ray. If that is so, I am sorry, but I am going to have to disappoint. Perhaps it's time we moved past seeing one particular young pink-haired woman as a superficial girl who can't focus on the beauty within. Perhaps it's time we moved on from the notion of seeing Naruto as someone who only suffers because he holds the demon fox within his belly. Why does what constitutes so little of Naruto's personality be his primary focus? Why not his memories? Isn't his past what makes him who he is today? Isn't the QB's past different from his own? Though the nine-tailed fox may be the source of all the pain found within that X-ray, it wasn't the reason Sakura acted so strangely the past week. She had learned a few years ago just what Naruto's secret was, the fact that the QB was sealed within him. It was an accident that was the result of a late-night drinking session shared with her sensei. She never told anyone what she knew. Better to let him be forgotten in the village instead of becoming cursed as a mark of evil. The X-ray that was pinned against the wall outlined the entire bone structure of the 20-year-old male. Each and every inch of that X-ray told a story of years of pain and abuse. Not a single stretch of bone gave any hints of being unbroken at one point or another. It wouldn't have been unusual if many of the healed broken bones were more recent, but experience told the young cherry blossom that these were as old as he was. Sakura hugged herself with her arms and fell to her knees as the tears quickly fell away from her. How could she continue to look upon one who had been abused for so long? The same boy who would greet her and the rest of their old team with such glee was the same one who suffered immeasurable pain as a child. And all she could do back then was berate him for being so cheery. No, she wasn't disgusted with Naruto. She wasn't afraid of what was held within him or what he may or may not be capable of. It was herself she was most furious at. It was Naruto's potential reaction to how she had treated him back then that caused her to shy away from him. Once again, without her sensing it, Naruto found himself holding Sakura before she could detect his movement. Had her eyes been open even slightly, she would have seen the infamous yellow blur that had spawned stories throughout the country of fire. Damn. Even with Tsunde's training I can't keep track of him. When did he get so fast? Wait, he's hugging me. Don't cry, Sakura-chan. It's not as bad as it looks. The X-ray is just hazy or something. Just don't cry anymore, okay? One of his hands held her so tightly yet so softly that she was sure it could not have been his touch. However, the other hand which stroked her back and filled her with the confidence only Naruto could reassured her it was indeed him. His desire to comfort her quickly backfired as her whimpering exploded into a full-blown fury of cries that were only partially muffled against his chest. She lightly beat against him with his fist as two waterfalls of tears flowed down from her eyes and made the inevitable plunge towards the floor. Barker, why didn't you tell us anything? Why would anyone want to hurt you like that for so long? I could have, or Kakashi-sensei could have helped you. We could have kept you safe from them. It never occurred to her that being the vessel for Kyuubi was considered a good enough reason to most people. She was just never that shallow. He smiled as he allowed her sweet scent to waft up from her hair and back into his nose. It wasn't your place to get involved, Sakura-chan. I wanted to be a ninja and they have to learn to take care of themselves sometimes. Ninja can't always be part of a team. Sakura sniffled her nose before speaking once again. Though her voice was soft and trembling, it was also loving and sweet. Just the way Naruto liked it. Stupid, idiot, jerk, moron. Even now you are holding me like this and trying to protect me. Though it pained him slightly to do so, Naruto couldn't help but chuckle. That's because you're Sakura-chan and Sakura-chan is a very precious, very important person to me. I can't become Hokage if I can't keep my precious ones safe. Religion wasn't a very widespread concept throughout these countries. Everyone had faith in their comrades, their village, and their Hokage. Thinking about what would happen after UD would only hinder more people than it would help. However, despite all this, there were many who believed in some sort of higher being that could slightly influence events. Naruto had never been one of these people. Except here and now, he thought to himself a silent prayer. He had a knack for ruining such tender moments with his loudmouth foolishness and pranks. No one had told him just how rapidly he had matured over the years. Please, please don't let me do anything stupid right now. Please let me continue holding on to Sakura-chan. Let me be a little bit selfish, just this once. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was nothing more than that infamous dumb luck he had an unlimited supply of. Or maybe it really was the blessings of a higher being. He would have to be safe regarding the reasons behind her irrational actions. Most likely she was just using him for comfort after being abandoned by her teammates so long ago. Everyone else had been able to form close and tight bonds with their respective groups. She had been denied this pleasure. Of course, there was always the possibility that he was the temporary substitute for him. Naruto could be her pillar of strength in times of peril, but he would not be the replacement. He didn't deserve that kind of false attention. At least the hatred he was shown by others was undeniably real. There was always that slim possibility that she did indeed have feelings for him on some level. He felt her emotions to be sincere enough to be at least that of a friend's. Maybe she did love him. If there was hope that someone like him could become Hokage one day, then why not hope his crush since childhood could care for him in that way? His only fear was that love would have been out of guilt or misplaced feelings for a teammate who didn't want to return. When it came right down to it, what did Sakura really know about Naruto anyways? Few ever cared to check up upon him outside of a mission back when he was just starting out as a ninja. Even when they worked together, Sakura did her best to ignore Naruto. Was that all supposed to magically change just because he left for a few years and came back home? Naruto was by no means the sharpest light bulb in the drawer, but that didn't mean he was utterly foolish. It was time to be careful with his emotions. Whenever you open yourself up, you become vulnerable to attack. The young blonde could feel Sakura's breathing steady beneath him from her previous hysteria, though she remained awake. It was amazing just how pink her hair could be. It scared him how faded his memory of her became in these past years. With every passing day, the town he remembered became duller and duller as he had fewer memories to recall. Sakura noticed all too quickly that the man holding her was being silent. Not a word escaped him. Nothing from a silly utterance to ruin the moment to a loud display of his concern. Naruto had grown up, and grown up well. But just how they both look in their 20s is a description best left for another time. The silence was becoming too much for the girl. She had spent years living with it. Konoha just wasn't the same without its number one ninja in surprising people. She hoped that with his return that much would change. It seemed she was wrong. Perhaps Naruto just needed to fully heal before that could happen. Until then she would break the silence and just get some things off her chest. Naruto, I'm sorry for the way I treated you before you left. It wasn't fair of me to do something like that. I didn't know about the QB, but that's no excuse. I never paid you the attention that you deserve. I didn't appreciate you for who you really were, Naruto. I was just a spoiled little brat back then. The truth is, Sakura released her hold around his neck and adjusted herself rapidly so she could look him straight in those big beautiful blue eyes of his. The truth is that Naruto's eyes were shielded from her vision as his own breathing had calmed down and lulled him to a sleep. She didn't even notice since his hands were still wrapped around in that meaningful hold she had never experienced before. The nerve of him. Here I am opening myself up and he falls asleep. I'll teach him a lesson or two. The medical ninja quickly calmed her inner anger and instead she was going to react in a more ladylike fashion. She wouldn't dare let anyone think Naruto of all people had become more mature than her. She closed her eyes though she did not fall asleep while she carefully monitored his chakra for fluctuations. The last words she spoke quietly echoed throughout the room just loud enough to bring a smile to the loudest ninja this hidden village ever produced. Stupid lovable Barker. I'm glad you are home. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.